On Sunday, November 13th, Alexander and Rebecca Smith were brutally murdered by their farmhand, Anton Geisler. The night of the murders, Anton previously had tea with the Smiths, but returned to his room upstairs shortly after. Just a couple of hours later, Anton snuck out back and broke into the east room through the window, just on the right side of the home, over here. Let's take a closer look at the crime scene. As we enter into the front room of the home, we can see the bodies of the victims. As we take a closer look, we can see Alexander's body partially in the fireplace with a gash to his head caused by the axe that was stolen by Anton from the outside shed. Moving over to Mrs. Smith, we can see her entire upper body covered in blood. Using the same axe used to kill Mr. Smith, Geisler smashed her in the back. As we can determine from her cast-off patterns on the walls, just over here, the Smiths were slashed multiple times with the axe. If we move into the east room, we can see the shattered glass from the broken window Anton broke in through. Let's take a closer look. Moving into the parlor, we can see the bloody axe Anton used to murder the Smiths laying here on the ground. That is all. Can you please state your name for the record?
Francis Kieran.
What was your relationship like with the victims, Mr. and Mrs. Smith?
I slept by their house every weekend to sell goods and supplies.
Did you visit their house to sell goods on Sunday evening specifically?
Yes, but not sell them anything.
How long have you been known as the Long Island Peddler?
For around the past 3 years.
And did you have any personal relationships with either Mr. or Mrs. Smith?
No, I would see them every weekend or so, but our relationship did not extend past that.
Did you notice any suspicious behavior at the Smith farm leading up to the murders?
Nothing of any importance.
Would you be able to provide any names of individuals who might have had reason to harm Mr. Smith?
I always had a weird feeling about his farmhands, especially a new one, Anton Geisler.
Could you provide a detailed account of your whereabouts on the day of the murders?
I was going to my usual rounds for the weekend, stopped by many houses on Long Island.
Do you know of anyone with motive to kill or murder the Smiths?
Oh no, but they were very liked in the community and not have many enemies.
Was Mr. Smith wealthy? Did he ever flaunt his wealth?
Yes, he was wealthy. However, he was quite secretive about his fortunes. I only know it because of how much he regularly purchased from me.
Do you have anything else that you believe is important to this investigation?
Nothing of any importance.
Can you please state your name for the record?
Henry Bauer.
Were you acquainted with the victims, Mr. and Mrs. Smith? If so, what was the nature of your relationship with them?
Well, I was previously their farmhand.
How long were you farmhand for the Smiths?
Around 2 years.
Do you have an alibi for the night of the murders?
I was having tea with the Smiths in the front room. On Sunday evening and afterward, I returned to my cottage on the Smith farm.
Did you observe anyone acting suspiciously in the vicinity of the Smith's residence around the time of the murders?
No, not anyone recently. Although I did see the peddler moving by the farmhouse very slowly on the night of the murders.
What was the nature of your relationship with the Smith's new farmhand, Anton Geisler?
I acted as a translator between him and Mr. Smith. And Anton is also from Germany and did not speak very good English.
Have you noticed any unusual behavior or interactions involving Mr. and Mrs. Smith in the days leading up to their deaths?
Anton seemed more upset than usual with Mr. Smith for his mocking towards Anton's poor English.
Were there any valuables or items missing from the Smith's residence following the murders that you're aware of?
I noticed both the axe and the hammer had gone missing from the shed in the back, but I don't think much of it.
Can you recall any specific details or occurrences from the day of the murders that you believe could be relevant to this investigation?
None of any importance.
What had you previously observed of the relationship between Mr. Smith and Anton Geisler?
They were unable to communicate, but as I mentioned earlier, Mr. Smith made fun of Anton frequently for his inabilities to speak English.
Thank you for your time. Can you please state your name for the record?
Mary Ann Albach.
Do you have an alibi for the night of the murders, Mary?
I left the estate on Saturday to be with mother. and not return until Monday.
What was your relationship like with the victims?
Mrs. Smith was my aunt. I was a household maid for her and her husband.
And where did you reside while working for them?
I lived in an upstairs room at the farmhouse, along with Anton Geyser.
What was your relationship like with Geyser, the farmhand of Mr. and Mrs. Smith?
We had recently become friends as we lived together. He's a nice man.
Do you believe that Anton is capable of doing something like killing Mr. and Mrs. Smith?
Never! He would never do such a thing.
Were Mr. and Mrs. Smith a very wealthy couple?
Yes. Mr. Smith kept an entire chest of money in the farmhouse.
Interesting. What kind of work did you do around the farmhouse?
I cooked and cleaned, took care of my aunt and Mr. Smith.
How long did you have this job at the estate?
For about 1 year prior to the murders.
Okay. Is there any other information you believe could help the investigators with this case?
Nothing of any significance.
And could you recall any specific details or occurrences from the day of the murders that you believe could be relevant to this investigation?
It was unusual for them to have tea in the evening with the farmhands, but I don't think much of it.
Thank you for your time. Can you please state your name for the record?
Anton Geyser.
Can you recount your activities on the day of the murders?
After I finished tea with the couple, I left to go upstairs to my bedroom in the farmhouse.
Did you notice anyone or anything unfamiliar near the Smith's home in the days leading up to the murders?
I heard that peddler had come by the day of the murders, but I had not seen him.
Were you angry with Mr. Smith for any reason?
Yes. He didn't pay me the wages he'd promised, and frequently mocked me for not being able to speak English.
Where did you live previously?
I immigrated here from Germany.
Do you have an alibi for the night of the murders?
I was with Bauer and the Smiths having tea until I recited to my room upstairs.
Did Mr. and Mrs. Smith express any concerns for their safety or mention feeling threatened by anyone in the days leading up to their deaths?
No, they were a very well-liked couple in town.
Where have you been residing while working at the farmhand with the Smiths?
A lodging room on the second floor of the farmhouse.
And who did you have tea with on Sunday evening in the East Room?
Henry Bauer and the Smiths.
So why did you come to Long Island to work?
I heard there would be a good job for me.
How much did Alexander Smith say that he would pay you?
$4 for a month of work.
Can you please state your name for the record?
Anton Geyser.
So you came to work with the Smiths a few months ago, Geyser?
Yes, I came to America on July 1st, but did not start working for the Smiths until November.
And you were told that you'd be paid $4 for your month of labor, correct?
Yes.
What were you paid in instead?
Alexander Smith paid me with a pair of boots instead.
Did this anger you at all?
Yes, I worked all month to be paid actual money.
Did Mr. Smith do anything else by chance that may have angered you?
Well, occasionally he mocked me for not being able to speak English.
Did this anger you enough to kill him?
No, never. I am not a murderer.
What is your alibi for the night of the murders?
On Sunday evening, I had tea with Henry Bauer and the Smiths before I returned to my room upstairs.
Did you ever really return to your room upstairs?
Yes, I was very tired and went straight to bed.
Is that so? Would you like to explain how your fingerprints got on both the murder weapons?
Well, I don't know. I must have touched them while cleaning the shed, possibly.
And how did you get that wound on your knee, as well as the tear in your pants?
Oh, just from working on the farm.
Thank you for your time. Hi, my name is Ella Merrill, and I have a master's degree in criminology at Princeton University. I've been working at the Rhode Island Police Department as a lead investigator for 7 years, and in these 7 years, I've become an expert in shoe and hair analysis. I've become very good at my job as I've spent countless hours analyzing hair and shoe prints and comparing them to those found at crime scenes in order to catch killers. The image on the left is a control sample of Anton Geyser's hair. It is straight, blonde, has a continuous medulla pattern, an amorphous medulla structure, and an imbricate scale pattern. The image on the right shows hair that was found at the crime scene in the East Room window. It is straight, blonde, has a continuous medulla pattern, an amorphous medulla structure, and the scale pattern is imbricate. This makes the hair found at the crime scene a perfect match with Anton Geyser's. Here we have a control sample of Anton Geyser's footprint. And just below, we can see a footprint that was found before the front porch of the home, and another footprint that was found under the east room window, the same window that was broken into in order to murder the Smiths. Comparing the two footprints,